এই ভিডিওরে আমি ডিসকস করিবা দ আর্ট অফ আনসার রাইটিং ফর OPSC OCS মেন্স। এইটা আমার আর্ট অফ আনসার রাইটিং র পার্ট 2 অফ द ভিডিও, जोथरे कि आमे डिस्कस करिवा कि आमे आंसर रे केमिति डायग्राम इनकलकेट करिवा, डायग्राम केमिति यूज करिवा, एज वेल एज आमे देखिवा जेतोळे हमको गोटे क्वेश्चन ठीक से जणा नाही, तार आंसर ठीक से जणा नाही, केमिति आमे पॉइंट जनरेट करि परिबा आ ब्रेनस्टॉर्म करिकि आ भलो आंसर गोटे लिखि परिबा। এইটা আপনার সাথে ডিসকস করবে সৌরভ দাস স্যার, যে কি ওপিএসসি ওসিএস 2015 রে র্যাঙ্ক 1 আনিଥିଲେ ଆଉ यूपीएससी रे ए वर्ष से रैंक होल्डर। এই ভিডিওটা आम क्रैश कोर्स रे जो क्लास हुए तार गोटे पार्ट। आपण एबे नेक्स्ट वॉइस जोटा सुनिबे सेटा सौरभ दास सर कर। लेट्स स्टार्ट।
एबे स्क्रीन शेयर है जी?
यस सर।
नेक्स्ट वी आर गोइंग टू गो टू डायग्राम्स। डायग्राम में बहुत भलो से लास्ट क्लास टा बहुत बेसिक क्लास था, तो बहुत भलो से एमती बुझे नथी। Do some more diagrams as well. In this class again I'm going to give you a few basic or rudimentary diagrams. Okay. Again, many of you might already know this, but because this is only an intermediate level class, so I'm going to explain to this to you again. Okay. Now diagrams come under which category?
Presentation.
Mostly presentation, but through this we are also providing some content also. Without content, if it is only presentation, this will be called a gimmick, and we'll discuss this gimmick also. Okay. Hold.
Yes sir, yes.
Okay. So the point is that diagrams are a combination of content and presentation, mostly presentation. But if there is no content in a diagram, then it becomes a gimmick. Okay. So gimmick is something that you are only doing, you are showing to the examiner that it's a value addition, but actually it is not a value addition. And you usually do it just to get some a few maybe marks, or when you don't have any content तो हम पाखरे बेसी नहीं, तो gimmick करके हमें किसी पेज fill up करिया पे use करू। So we'll go to gimmick also, and some examples I'll give you about gimmick. For the time being, one, suppose you have the content, how to represent it. Very basic things. For example, Venn diagrams, you know, all of these Venn diagrams. Let's say there is a question on law and ethics. So you will say that, okay, this is law, this is ethics, and these are what we'll call that ethical laws. There might be some laws which are not very ethical, and there might be some ethical action which may not be legal. So there is an overlap of law and ethics, and you can also explain it in this way. In the society where the overlap between law and ethics is more, that is a more harmonious society and their laws are good. Whereas in a society in which the overlap between law and ethics is less, it is usually not a very ethical society, and the laws would be very restrictive or very unfair also. So this is an example of how to use diagrams in your answer. Now suppose there is, you can draw boxes, you can show in different ways of boxes. Let's say there is a question on zero budget natural farming. So now if you want, you can write it that, okay, the different 4 components of ZVNF are this and this, and you can write the 1, 2, 3, 4. But a better way would be to represent this in this manner. Okay, these are the 4 components: Jivamrit, Bijamrit, mulching, and Wafasa. So these are the 4 components, and here you will write that 4 components. Do not forget to label the diagrams, or sorry, the caption likhe bhuliyo na. 4 components of ZVNF. So this is a better way of representing facts or your content than this. So this is a bit boring. Now let's go to a bit more difficult kind of diagrams. How to do these kind of diagrams. So now these will only develop as you practice. Jate mock test so jinsa lekhi ke practice kari pariyo, then you will learn. You can go through some toppers copies, see how they have represented their answers. Okay. So let's say for example, there is a question on federalism, and you are trying to explain the difference between, let's say, what is a kind of cooperative federalism and what is a kind of federalism which is more coercive federalism, or which is in which there is some asymmetric relation between center and states. Now here you can represent this idea in this way. For example, you will say that okay, this is center and these are the states. These are individual states. The collection of this state is in one end, and this is center. And here you can write it that okay, this is cooperative federalism. On the other hand, you can draw the same thing and you will show that in this case, center has become heavier than the collection of states. Here you will write that this is an example of coercive federalism or an example of asymmetric relations. Okay. So through a very simple diagram, you are conveying the message that center on one hand and all the states on the other hand, they should be on the equivalent pedestal. And when they are not, then there is an asymmetry or disbalance in the system. Okay. Let's take another example. And this is an example that I was talking to you about in the last class. That this is a diagram that I found in one of the reports of second ARC. And in the original report, they had drawn this diagram. In some of the coaching center materials also, you will find a similar kind of diagram. And they had written like this. What are the different pillars of good governance? Good governance of tinta pillar achi. What hala? Grievance redressal. Okay. Second pillar is capacity building. And the third pillar is citizen charter. Okay. And what they had done is that they had written they had drawn this diagram, and this is the building. And under this, what is the base? Base is citizen centricity. Okay. Now the point is when you practice these kind of diagrams again and again in the mock tests, you will develop the skill to transpose this diagram onto other kind of answers as well. For example, let's say कि exam रे good governance ଉପରେ question ही ଆସିଲାନି, rather question ଆସିଲା mission कर्मयोगी ऊपर. And in your mind, you want to write that mission कर्मयोगी रो तीनिटा component और तीनिटा aspect होची कौन कौन aspect? Right attitude, right skills, and right knowledge. The theory part रे अच्छी देखी दो mission कर्मयोगी रे इटा अछि. So now instead of just writing like this, what you can do is that you can draw the similar diagram, and now here you will put that okay. लिखी दो right, second pillar लिखी दो right skills, third pillar लिखी दो right knowledge, and here you will write mission कर्मयोगी. And what is the outcome? The outcome is, let's say, New India by 2047 or Developed India by 2047. Now, can anyone say that this diagram is wrong? No one can say that this is wrong. Point is that even if you created this diagram out of your creativity, the point is that you are conveying only a message to achieve New India by 2047. Now, because you practice these kind of diagrams many times, then only you will be able to come up with these kind of diagrams in other contexts also. This is a very, very handy skill to have when you face with questions on you have relatively less knowledge, because then through diagram and other kind of presentation skills, you can improve your answer, you can make it stand out from the rest of the crowd. Okay. बुझिले कौन कौन डाउट अच्छे थे?
ठीक सर, पेज तो ठीक है सर, गुड डाउट लागले.
हाँ पचार.
सर ए जो आमे डायग्राम जो करूछु सेटा कंटेंट को माने आमे कन्वे करिया को हमर आंसर कन्वे करिया को एनफ ना ताकू पुनी एलाबोरेट भी करिया दरकार.
ना देखो डायग्राम रा पर्पस ही हला कि इकोनॉमी ऑफ वर्ड्स माने लेस वर्ड रे तुमको बेसी जिंस तुम कहि दउछ जदि
अच्छा
डायग्राम पर भी ताको एक्सप्लेन कलो ताले डायग्राम पॉइंट कोन है तो हेतरे तुम तो एमिति भी वर्ड भी वेस्ट हो टाइम वेस्ट हो एंड examiner will also think ki अरे you have already conveyed it why are you again explaining. Okay. Now try to understand where you have to explain the diagrams. Okay, I'll also add one more thing. Okay. देखो बेले बेले कौन हो बेसिकली जेतले ऑप्शनल पेपर रे ना जेतले लॉन्ग क्वेश्चन आसीयो बड़ बड़ क्वेश्चन आसीयो सेतबेले तुमको फॉर एग्जांपल गोटे थियोरेटिकल फ्रेमवर्क तुमको देवाक पड़ियो सेतबेले तुम गोटे डायग्राम ड्रॉ करके देन यू कैन आल्सो एक्सप्लेन इट व्हाट यू मीन बाय दिस. नाउ देयर यू हैव द स्कोप. इन जीएस पेपर जनरली यू डोंट हैव द स्कोप and that is also not your purpose to explain things. Your purpose is to convey your ideas in a very precise and concise manner. There diagram through कर देला पर ताकू पुणी काहे एक्सप्लेन करियो.
ओके सर
But
जेमती हमें को क्वेश्चन है जदि हमें फैक्टर्स लिखुछु गोटे कोई टॉपिक रो फैक्टर्स अफेक्टिंग सो एंड सो ताको हमें जदि काइंड ऑफ स्पोकन विल टाइप ऑफ डायग्राम रे हमें डिस्क्राइब करछु ता परे से फैक्टर्स उनको तो एलाबोरेट करिया काइना खाली सब हेडिंग्स लिखी की तो पर्पस फिल हबनी.
very good. You have asked a very nice question. So एटा मु छाडी थली जो तुम क्वेश्चन पछारला बोली मु एटा को कवर कर दूची हला. Now I will answer your question through this section. Just focus on this. Now apart from diagram, there is also way of this is a type of presentation skill which is known as diagrammatized answers. Okay. This is another very useful skill and you should every one of you should develop this skill, otherwise your answers will not look very nice and also you might also waste a lot of time conveying the same message that your competitors will convey in a very precise manner. Now the difference between diagrams and diagrammatized answer is that this is basically more text or more words will be used, more words in the sense ki, sorry, word dominated only, but your presentation is a bit different. So normally how do we present our answer? ଆମେ ଏମିତି ଲେଖୁ ଏମିତି sentence ଲେଖିବୁ ତାପରେ ଏମିତି parawise ଲେଖିବୁ. In diagrammatized answer we will write something like this, or you will write like this. So now this looks much better than normal kind of answer. Okay. So let me give you some examples. Really, let's see. Suppose there is a question on climate change, or they are asking you what are the let's say what are the outcomes or consequences of climate change. You can write like this also. These are the consequences. Number 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Any topic you are writing, suppose they are asking what are the pros and cons. So you can write that, okay, pros or advantages of this thing is like this, and disadvantages are these. This is also a good way of writing things. You can write, suppose you have a lot of points to write. Okay. Instead of giving a boring kind of heading and then writing down 1, 2, 3, what you can do is, let's say women's issues. So you'll write like this. It will women's issues. And here you will write in such kind of bullet marks or arrow marks. You can write a few points. Suppose gender disparity, sociocultural inequalities, domestic violence, lack of opportunities, anything. Now this will look better than an answer in which you have written like this. So तुमने जो क्वेश्चन कहला कि तुम्हारा जो क्वेश्चन बचा दिलो कि can we write? Yes, of course you can write. But if you are asking whether we have to explain everything, now it again depends on your context. Do you have that scope to explain anything? In GS1 paper, usually you don't have. Okay. So in that case, you can only mention qualified phrases and then you can move on. Unless the essence of the question itself is on a very specific point, then you have to explain more on that. Okay. For example, suppose question नहीं पता है तुमको ये about probity in governance. Okay. Now probity in governance is suppose question itself is bit narrow. तो तुम्हें ता ऊपर बहुत जिनसा लिखी परियो ताको explain करी परियो. Suppose the question itself is about, let's say, empathy. Then you have to explain a lot about what empathy is, giving examples and everything. So there you have to explain even after giving, drawing some kind of diagram, you have to explain. If the question is on financial inclusion, okay. and you are writing like this. If financial inclusion, for example, first thing is that we should have a basic, BSBDA. What is it called? Zero account balance. Okay. Second is suppose digital literacy, or sorry, financial literacy. What else can be financial inclusion? Other banking, access to banking services. Insurance, access to insurance. Now, suppose you are writing like this, but because the question is specifically on financial inclusion, after that you have to explain all these things. Then you will make one heading on zero balance account, financial literacy, banking services, and under this you will give example of Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana. Here you can write about leveraging technology, and under that you will write about how JAM Trinity has leveraged technology to improve financial inclusion. Here we'll give example of Beam application, UPI. UPI in itself can be one of the headings. My point is, once you are writing such kind of diagrammatized answer, ଗୋଟେ similar ପ୍ରଥମେ diagram କରିଦେଲ, ତାପରେ further ତମେ ତାକୁ ବୁଝେଇ ପାରିବ. But again, it all depends on what is the context of the question.
Context.
So now we are going to towards the last end of our session today. This is very, very important because now we are going to tackle a new kind of problem that you will face. Problem कौन देखो? This is related to the level of difficulty of your paper. Usually ଗୋଟେ standard mains paper रे प्राय 10टा क्वेश्चन एमिति आसीओ जोथरे तम पाखरे कंटेंट अछि. Okay, and you can write an answer very well. 5टा क्वेश्चन अराउंड एमिति हबो जोथरे हम कोसी 20 क्वेश्चन सपोज जोथरे दियो. सपोज 15 क्वेश्चंस अछि, तमरो 15 क्वेश्चंस आसुची. यारो कंपोजिशन ब्रेकडाउन किछ अल्ला हबो. मु एडा मोर पर्सनल एक्सपीरियंस रु यूपीएससी रु कहूची. 5टा क्वेश्चन एमिति थियो जोथरे सम आइडिया आई वुड हैव सम वेग आइडिया, एंड 5टा क्वेश्चन एमिति जोथरे थियो very little to no idea. Now, even these questions we can write something on. The question is here in these questions where you have very little to no idea. How are you going to tackle these questions? Because the problem is that you cannot leave any questions blank. Okay? It's a very practical advice I'm giving you, because point is that तुम्हें कौन भावियो एंड किछि पिला एथरे एडवाइस करनती कि किछि क्वेश्चन कोन जोता भलो से आसुने एटा छाडी दो एंड फोकस ऑन अदर क्वेश्चंस इन व्हिच यू कैन फेच मोर मार्क्स. But the problem with this kind of argument is the problem of diminishing returns. Okay, and here this can be said as your quality of your answer, and this is the marks awarded. Okay, now mark is capped by the maximum mark which can be awarded, and this is the quality of your answer which can be infinity also. The point is that initially when you are writing better answer, quality answer, you are consecutively you are getting better marks. But after a certain phase, even if you are writing very good, very excellent answer, still the increase in marks will not be that much, because the examiner will feel कि okay चलो ये question में तो इतने बेसी भी deeply in depth पचरा ही ना थला, इतने अधिका लिखली कितने अधिका मार्क तुम मिलियो. Let's say 15 मार्कर गोटे क्वेश्चन है, गोटे बहुत एक्सीलेंट आंसर लिखली भी कितने मिलियो तुम? 10 मिलियो, 12 मिलियो. तुम तो कभी 14 आउट ऑफ 15 कहीं भी देबे ना यूजुअली. But whereas if you leave a question totally blank, you'll get 0. So here you have to understand कि all of this is based on your common sense. How are we going to maximize our answer? Maximize our marks. So it is my advice that you should try to attempt all of the questions. The problem again comes that in those questions in which we have very little knowledge, how are we going to attempt the answer? So there is a trick for this, and this comes from the idea of brainstorming. Okay. Brainstorming is a concept which was given by Osborne. Don't go into details about this. We just have to understand what this basically means. The concept behind brainstorming is that whenever you think that you don't know anything, it is usually not the case. We actually know many things, but those may not be directly related to the topic. These may be indirectly related. And these things also seem to us at that moment will not come to our mind. So for that reason, whenever we encounter any question, we think that, okay, a topic to padi nahi, solve keମିତି karibi? So let's leave this question. But brainstorming is a sort of way of looking at things which will dismantle this mental block from your mind. And I usually use this term very often, and I want you to understand all of us have a mental block or the other in some aspects. Okay, this is basically a sort of disability that we have created for ourselves, that we don't know something or we cannot do something, and it is just in our mind. It is not real, it's just in our mind. And brainstorming is that thing which removes this mental block of yours. Now what this basically means, brainstorming का माने कौन? Suppose कोई भी topic पर question दिया गया and you feel that you don't know anything, just go to the rough sheet, write down the name of the topic, and think of all the related and unrelated things that come to your mind on that topic. It may be very distantly related, but just think. And all the random stuff that you can write on this thing, okay, take some 1 to 2 minutes. जीएस आंसर रे हेती तुमको टाइम मिलियो, एसए रे तो हमको बेसी टाइम मिलियो. एसए ऊपर भी हमें कथा हो कि एसए रे भी ब्रेनस्टॉर्मिंग केमितिया करा जाए. एसए रे तो तुम पाखरे बहुत भलो कंटेंट आसियो. But here you try to generate as many ideas as possible. And these ideas at that time may not seem related, but you just write down. And then you try to evaluate, okay, which of these things can I relate to this concept, and try to basically sort of organize it a little bit. Okay, चलो याकु मु इंट्रोडक्शन भाବରେ କିଛି गोटा लिखि पारि, याकु बॉडी रे याकु एमतिया डायग्राम करी କିଛି लिखि पारि, कंक्लूजन ने गोटा लाइन एमतिया लिखि पारि. Here you can use as many gimmicks as possible because you have less content. Now again, this might seem very simple कि okay चलो এটা तो बहुत simple, but how to exactly do it? So let's take a previous year question. Okay, गोटे UPSC रो PYQ मु करी दमु देखौ how to do brainstorming. This is a question that I faced in 2023 exam itself, and I remember because again when I read this I felt कि अरे यार ये तो बहुत ही absurd question आसियाला, बहुत ही random question. How can I write about this? The question was discuss different ways in which microorganisms can help meet the current fuel shortage of India. Okay, and this was a 10-marker question. Now, कोठी microorganism, कोठी fuel shortage. On the surface, there is very little link. Because fuel shortage माने कौन? हमें basically fuel shortage माने petrol, diesel, ऐसे जिनसे सिर्फ भावियो. Fossil, some kind of fossil fuel, even non-fossil fuel भी, renewable energy. But the point is, we usually do not associate microorganisms with fuel. But if you think, we actually have read a lot about microorganisms, and we have also read a lot about fuel shortage. यदि तुम्हें sincerely prepare करते हो at least 1 year, you have enough content in your mind. Point is that suddenly by seeing the question, your mind will go blank. But then you have to do what we call as brainstorming. Now you write down here. What we do is you write down the 2 key terms, or how many key terms there is. One is microorganisms, one is fuel shortage, or in general fuel in India. And you generate as many points as you can. Okay. Now you tell me microorganisms sir कौन पढ़िছো? Anyone?
Types of microorganisms. Okay.
Biofuel पढ़िছো कि नहीं?
जट्रोबा सीड्स.
Jatrophy of red. See, example of brainstorming. बहुत है haphazardly, बहुत random जिनसे आसे mind रे. आउ कौन हबो? गोटे prelims से थोड़ा question आसला माने पड़ची. Microbial fuel cell.
सर फोर्थ
बहुत difficult
चारटा
question.
जनरेशन भी लिख पारबा सर चारटा
Very good.
जनरेशन
अरे एबे ना से सब जिनसे भाबनी कि लिखि पारिया
आज्ञा
नहीं. I'm
आज्ञा
explaining to you कि at this stage you should write down whatever is coming into your mind. आउ कौन microorganism का पढ़िছো? Bioremediation.
हाँ बायोरेमेडिएशन ही पारबा सर
Environment and ecology रे bioremediation पढ़िছো? आउ कौन पढ़िছো? गोटे पुस्सा 40 और समथिंग गोटे लिक्विड आस्तला माने अछि उतरा माइक्रोऑर्गेनिज्म यूज करी की हमें से जो पराली को हमें कन्वर्ट कर दो फर्टिलाइजर और समथिंग. Okay,
Yeah.
that you have read. What asla Global Biofuel Alliance India ର
Alliance. ଆଜ୍ଞା
Sir, ethanol from
very good.
plants.
Ethanol
blending.
ରୁ ମନେ ପଡିଲା ethanol
E20
blended
sir.
petrol, ethanol blending
E20
or
sir.
very good, excellent. ଏବେ ଦେଖୁଛ your mind is not blank, you have read so many things. E20 or ethanol blended petrol EBP program ଯୋଉଟା ଆମେ କହୁଛୁ, that is also there.
Sir, carbon capturing.
Very good.
ହେଇପାରିବ
Carbon
କି?
capturing and CCUS ଗୋଟେ ଅଛି ନା carbon capturing. Okay, but ମୋର exactly ମନେ ପଡୁନି carbon capturing ରେ ଆମେ use କରୁ କି micro organisms, I'm not sure.
Sir, but ଲେଖିପାରିବ sir, possible scientific way.
ଲେଖିପାରିବା decomposition ରେ ଆମେ use କରୁଛୁ କି ନାହିଁ different kind of micro organism. Okay, चलो ये तो bioremediation under ହିଁ ଆସିବ, but ଆଉ ଗୋଟେ just for the sake of making another point decomposition ଲେଖିପାରିବ. Okay, ହେଇଗଲା
Sir,
enough point
green
generated.
hydrogen is also there.
Green hydrogen use ହଉଛି micro organism, are you sure? ମୁଁ ଜାଣିନି actually. I somehow doubt it whether they are using microorganisms or not. Green hydrogen. Just check
Sir,
it once.
biodiesel.
Sir,
Biodiesel.
oil-
सेटा biofuel under आसଛି biodiesel. Very good. What else?
sir ସେ oil spilling ରେ ବି sir use ହୁଏ micro.
हाँ, oil spill ରେ भी very good. Oil spill ରେ use हुए ତାକୁ contain କରିବା ପାଇଁ, है ना?
सर कार्बन कैप्चरिंग जो मु पॉइंट टा कहली सर सेटा साइनोबैक्टेरिया जो हमर वेस्टेज गुडा जो आमे पकाऊ रिवर रे जोटा कि आपनकर बहुत इंडिया रे बहुत प्रोमिनेंट जिंस हुए तो सेइथरे वाटर से माने जो जतरे डिकम्पोज करंती तो से माने टाणी नियंती कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड और अन्य सब ये गुडा को
Okay, but
जाई
तार
परिबो सेइथरे
product of fuel किसी बाहर है किसी process में. That's what I'm asking.
सर
Any
सेटा
fuel or
मु
energy
जानि
source?
सेटा मु जानिनी सर ठीक से
ठीक है, you can write just one point, but कथा होची how are you going to see? This is the next point हमें देखिया एटा. There is another 2 more steps involved in this. Okay, now let's go to fuel shortage. Fuel shortage में sir कौन जान चुको? India's growing energy need. हमर एनर्जी तो बहुत दरकार होची ना. ता ऊपर यदि किछि डेटा और स्टैटिस्टिक्स अछि that can work as a fuel shortage ପାଇଁ काम करि परियो. आउ कोन अछि? रशिया यूक्रेन क्राइसिस या द्वारा हमर fuel shortage होची. Okay, what else is there? Our need for renewable energy goes.
सर टेक्नोलॉजी एंड फंड
Very good. Technology, lack of technology or obsolete technology अछि fuel shortage ପାଇଁ, है ना? आउ कोन नहीं पारे? NZD net zero by 2070. This is also one of the goals which will have impact on fuel shortage. एथुर मने पड़ला हमर पंचामृत गोल भितर एटा one of those थिला, है ना? पंचामृत भी हम मेंशन कर दो. आउ कोन?
सर लेस R&D फॉर एडवांस फ्यूल
Okay, that can also happen. PM जीवन योजना गोटे स्कीम अछि जैव ईंधन
सर
योजना.
सर लेस R&D रे आमे एटा भी एग्जांपल देई परिबो बजेट रखी बजेट रे प्रीवियस ईयर रे अराउंड केते कम परसेंटेज हमर प्रति वर्ष कम परसेंटेज R&D पई जाय जोथि पई कि प्रॉपर फंड जमा ही पारे एंड ए पॉइंट को रिलेट कर परिबो टेक्नोलॉजी एंड
हाँ,
एक्सेट्रा
yes, you can write कि बजेट को हमर हेल्प करियो एटा. बजेट रो गोटे ह्यूज पार्ट होची आमे इंपोर्ट करू बेसिकली ऑयल इंपोर्ट पेट्रोलियम एंड ऑयल प्रोडक्ट्स को इंपोर्ट करछु तार गोटे ता द्वारा हमर हाई इंपोर्ट बिल आछू, है ना? वेरी गुड. आउ कोन ही परियो? आउ कोन फ्यूल शॉर्टेज ऊपर आउ कोन ही परियो?
Gulf
Decarbonization of
countries.
okay, decarbonization of transport sector भी ही परियो. हमें this is one of our goals कि हमें decarbonization करियार अछि. पॉइंट
सर
देखो
से जो
एबे एनफ
सर गोटे न्यूक्लियर रो गोटे थिला जोटा कि आमे साइन करनु तो सेटा पे हमर न्यूक्लियर माने आनी
एनपीटी, बट ता
न्यूक्लियर
पे हमें एनपीटी साइन कलुनी बट हमें एनएसजी वेवर हमको मिल गला. सो दैट इज नो मोर दैट बिग अ प्रॉब्लम. बट ठीक है, यू कैन आल्सो राइट कि इंडियास न्यूक्लियर विंटर एटा कोन है ना हमरो न्यूक्लियर विंटर माने इवन दो हमको स्पेसिफिकली कोनसी हम ऊपर पाबंद नाही रेस्ट्रिक्शन नाही स्टिल we are not don't have very easy access, although still again ऑस्ट्रेलिया ठू हमें नोचू यूएस थारू नोचू टेक्नोलॉजी नेचू. बट ठीक अछि, यू कैन मेंशन दिस पार्ट आल्सो फ्यूल शॉर्टेज कोन
सर बट हमें
one of
माने
the
प्रॉपरली हमें नहीं पारने ना माने काली की जदी यूएसए काटसा लगे दो देन तो हमें पुणी बंद कर देबो सेटा
Right, right. You can definitely write कि alternative sources of energy which we require, we don't have access to those technologies or even the fuels, है ना? Basic fuel भी हम पाखे, raw material भी सब जिनसा नहीं हम पाखे, है ना? Basically uranium रे India very poor, thorium अच्छी जो ilmenite ये रो मिलुची, but एथिरे नहीं हमारा, we are poor in uranium. So yes, definitely you can write the nuclear angle also. Now let's go to the next phase. The point is that we have now generated enough number of points. The next phase is to link these two and to write a good answer. Okay. Now you have to write a good answer based on you have generated. See, we have generated so many points. Initially, जो question हमको बहुत ही absurd लाଗୁଥିଲା. Microorganisms are fuel shortage point link अछि. Now you can write a very good point. For example, you can in this question you can write कि you can begin with an introduction कि इंडिया रो fuel need कौन अछि और fuel shortage कौन अछि. Here you can write multiple points. You can start with current affairs related लिख परियो कि रशिया यूक्रेन क्राइसिस जोगु international fuel price जो हमर ह्यूज ହେଇଛି high price. Now it is impacting our import bill. हमर import bill भी high अछि. So this needs a relook at different sources of other sources of fuel, for example, which includes microorganisms. Okay. You can begin with this, context-led introduction. You can start with some kind of statistics or data also. You can say कि India रो growing energy need, कि India रो energy need is growing more than 2 times than the global average. This is a statistics given by IEA or something. You can start with this. So this shows that we need to diversify our fuel import or fuel sourcing portfolio. कि आमे कोटो fuel source करिवु सेटा को हमको diversify करियो पड़ियो, and this includes microorganisms. You can start with this also. So now once you have started, then what will you write? You will write कि fuel shortage काहे की होची और तारो impact कौन होची and सेथिरे आमे कौन कर परियो. For example, let's say कि हमारो high import bill ही गला और our goal towards diversifying our energy sources and our goal towards going towards renewable energy. In all of these things, microorganisms will help. And how can they help? For example, first and foremost, they can help in generating biofuel. Okay. So biofuel, then biofuel under कौन आसियो? Basically biodiesel आसियो. एथिरे आसियो ethanol आसियो. And under ethanol, you will write a sub point कि ethanol blended petrol. I'm not writing the entire answer. I'm just writing the keywords through which you can write down the answer. Okay. EBP. Here we will write that E20 program. Our goal is कि at least 20% of all petrol should be blended. Okay. So this is one aspect कि biofuel है. हाँ इधर भी लिख पाए national biofuel policy. Different types of different generations of biofuel. एबे आमे कोन फर्स्ट 10 आमे 2G and more आडकू मूव करछु. 2G ऊपर फोकस दिया होची, आपरे 3G and 4G ऊपर भी फोकस दिया जायो. फोर्थ जनरेशन and third generation and fourth generation biofuels. What else we will write? Let's say we'll now write about microbial fuel cell. याको गोटे हेडिंग कर दो MFC. Again, this is a practical answer I actually wrote in the exam hall. मु भी एते सारा पॉइंट जनरेट करि पार नथि बिकॉज़ हमें एते जण माइंड यूज कलु तो बहुत सारा एक्स्ट्रा पॉइंट भी आसी गला. But this thing I came to my mind कि UPSC रे गोटे prelims, this was a question in the UPSC prelims in 1 year. गोटे waste water treatment करा जे पारे नाही microbial fuel cell बोली एमते गोटे स्टेटमेंट वाला आस्तिला ता ऊपर. तो मो माइंड रे रही हितला. तो मो माइंड रे आसिला कि microbial fuel cell गोटे वर्ड आसिला फ्रेज आसिला माने now it is a fuel cell means it is able to generate some kind of energy, correct, using microbes. But mo pakre आउ किछि literally आउ किछि भी मु या विषय जाने. So what will I write under this? So now I thought let's do a gimmick, and this is known as gimmick. Gimmick कौन? जहाँ भी थियो देखो, suppose this is MFC. एथिरे आमे किछि गोटे basic input दउथु, maybe some kind of organic material, some kind of waste water, है ना, any wastage biodegradable material किछि गोटे दउथु. एंड एथिरे आमे इनपुट आउ भी कोन दउ, microbes मान को इनपुट दउ. Microbes माने ही तो डिकम्पोज करिवे. Now through decomposition and let's say biochemical reaction, some kind of biochemical reaction, what are we getting? This again, I don't know whether this is aerobic reaction, anaerobic reaction, but if I write biochemical reaction, this is a very generic term. In one hand, we'll get some waste or some kind of surplus, some kind of what do we call it? କିଛି ବି ଗୋଟେ basic other outcome ଗୋଟେ ଆସିବ, suppose maybe water ଖାଲି ବାହାରୁଥିବ, ଆଉ ବି ଗୋଟେ part ଆସିବ which is useful matter, that is energy, है ना, fuel basically. fuel को ଆମେ burn कले energy पाइबु, एटा ही तो ହେଇଥିବ ना, କିଛି ଗୋଟେ input ଦଉଥିବୁ, microbes को use करतु, ସେଥିରୁ ଆମକୁ fuel ବାହାରୁଥିବ. Basically this might be some kind of syngas kind of କିଛି ଗୋଟେ ଜିନିଷ ହେଇଥିବ, ଯାହାକୁ ଆମେ burn କରିକି energy ପାଇବୁ. So when you draw this generic kind of diagram, at the first look, the examiner will think, okay, you have actually read microbial fuel cell. The examiner will be happy. And even though you did not know anything about MFC, just through this kind of intelligent guessing, you are able to come up with some content. So this is an example of gimmick. Hala. Mate microbial fuel cell कौन actually तारा mechanism जाना नहीं, but just based on my guessing, I can write down something. And these are the hacks that you are going to write in the actual exam. Okay, चलो एटा ही गला तापरे कौन bioremediation. Another point होची कि bioremediation. Again, basically here you are using any kind of polluted material, including any kind of hazardous material also. याकू basically कौन करचंदी microorganisms माने break down कर दूचंती, and break down करिके फिर कौन बाहरुची some harmless material किसी बाहरुची, हला. And it is also sometimes it is also absorbed into the plants or trees, or we are able to use some kind of useful material किसी भी बाहरुची. एमितिया तो किसी गोटे हेइथिबो ना process. Okay. So this is how you write on things that you don't know much about. What else? Carbon capturing. चलो मत तो exactly जाना नहीं कौन हुए, तुम मान को भी तो जानू जाना थिला, तो he or she can write. Suppose you know what exactly it is, you can write down how we are using it. USA 40, you can give an example. देखो एथरे एथरे कौन करियो, एथरे हमकु गोटे attention draw करियार अछि. हम देखियो USA 40, this liquid has been developed by this Indian Agricultural Research Institute, which is converting stubbles, crop stubbles, into some kind of biodegradable material, which can be used as fertilizer. So by using microorganisms. So this is a gimmick. You are drawing the attention of the examiner. Look, I have written some unique point here. So it a gimmick, no? This is a valid point. Okay. Or else you can also put Global Biofuel Alliance. In a box, and you can write that India in the recently concluded G20 summit has taken a lead of Global Biofuel Alliance, which will boost the technology related to biofuel, including use of microorganisms. Okay. So you'll write down all of these things, and how will you conclude? You will again try to conclude through the use of, by this is the demand of the question. By the usage of such kind of microorganisms, we will be able to address the fuel shortage of India. And here you will write about Pradhan Mantri Jai Indhan Yojana, PMG1 Yojana. So in the conclusion, you will write that in this context, PM Jai Indhan Yojana or PMG1 is a step in the right direction. So basically, this will address our growing energy needs. The fuel shortage को हमारा address करियो. मुझे जल्दी wrap up कर देली, but point is कि you can. We had generated enough points. We did not use these things also. If you want, you can use all of these things. Russia, Ukraine war विषय लिख पारियो, पंचामृत. एटा कोई conclusion में लिखी पारियो आपको. By the use of alternative sources of fuel, including those generated by microorganisms, India can meet its target of net zero emission by 2070, which is part of our Panchamrit commitments. Okay. Similarly, I also missed this part, Jatropha. You can give example of how from the Jatropha plant we are decomposing, and through the use of microorganisms we are able to generate biofuel. Okay. Biofuel under what specific example लिख पारियो. बुझे
Yes, sir.
The point is, even when the question seems on the first glance that it's very, very difficult, you should trust your preparation and you should have developed this skill of brainstorming to write down a decent answer to this question. केबे भी mind को blank हवाको दबो नहीं. Have this faith that you have the knowledge required to crack this exam, and whatever existing knowledge you have, try to solve it using that knowledge only. Okay.
आई होप यू लाइक द वीडियो आपण जदि चाहूँगी आपण आम क्रैश कोर्स जॉइन करेंगे मेन्स जोटि कि आम आपण को पूरा सिलेबस कवर करेबू आउ आपण को प्रोवाइड करूँ बहुत भल नोट्स पीडीएफ आउ शॉर्ट नोट्स जोटा आपणकर मेन्स आगु रिविजन करने बहुत हेल्पफुल हम आम क्रैश कोर्स स्टार्ट हो गलानी जदि आप जॉइन करा चाहूँगी जॉइन करेंगे आपन को रिकॉर्डेड वीडियोस आउ पीडीएफ्स मिल जिवो क्रैश कोर्स रो डिटेल्स आपन को हम टेलीग्राम ग्रुप रे मिल जिवो टेलीग्राम ग्रुप रो लिंक मु एठी मेसेज रे पिन कर देबी आ सेठी हम कांटेक्ट नंबर भी पिन कर देबी आपन चाहिले टेलीग्राम ग्रुप रे जाई कि देखि पारिबे और एल्स आपन कांटेक्ट नंबर रे कॉल करिकि मेंस क्रैश कोर्स विषय रे बुझी पारिबे सो थैंक यू जय जगन्नाथ।